Jorge, thanks for spending some time with me today. I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a couple of years now, and I've always had a lot of respect for, how you manage your day to day and your process and how you exhibit leadership, especially in uncertain times. And we're going to drill in on that a little bit today. We both work supporting nonprofit customers. And so I know that over the last several months, there's been a lot of changes in this space. First, let me give you the floor, and why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, what you do, and set the stage for us.
Yeah, thanks, Carson. I appreciate you having me. It's been definitely kind of a tumultuous 6 months, to say the least. Challenges left and right coming all the time, but I think it's taught us a lot about what we can do in the work that we do and the type of people that we are and how we want to engage not only with our customers, but overall their constituency and our own teammates, right? How we can support each other and in turn support the customers and the constituency that they support. So yeah, I mean, you and I have worked together for a few years now in the tech social impact space. I've been with Microsoft for 7 years overall. Never really saw myself getting in the technology sales space. And never really something that I was like, this is the goal I want to get to. It kind of happened by happenstance. I met someone who went to work at Microsoft. They thought I would be a good fit for a pilot program that I was starting up, and kind of cut my teeth in like real low level EDU commercial sales, but it teed me up for bigger and better things, obviously. So I joined Tech Social Impact December of 22. And he's a minor work specialist, so really diving into the security, the productivity, and the data compliance piece of the business. Gave me an incredibly well-rounded understanding of not only the needs of our customers, but really how our tech can help impact the missions that they have. And really from the outset, that's how I've been doing what I do, is looking at the mission of what the customer is and how we can help them plug the holes that they have, look at the gaps that they might have, and be able to really facilitate a better operational structure so that they can spend more time and resources really impacting the constituency and the mission that they have. And over the years, I've developed that as the mentality, how I kind of leave everything. Really, I have a tagline that goes, "The mission makes the margin," and that's how I do everything that I do. In fact, like in tech for social impact, uh, because if you keep that focus, everything else kind of falls into place, right? It's Someone once told me, do the work, don't look at the numbers, don't look at the numbers, but don't live by the numbers. Just do the work day in and day out, and that's going to get you where you want to be. And it all worked out really well. In fact, I kind of did an on-job training as the marketing specialist for the role I have now as an account executive, where when you came on board, I was kind of doing it as an intern, and we worked together to develop what his territory and this role was going to mean to me, and how I was going to kind of shape it into my own. To when it came the time to like actually take it on full time, you even told me like, hey, you're the clear cut guy because you've been doing this and you've kind of redeveloped this role into something that you want it to be. But I always kept that mission makes the margin focus, and I think that's what's showing through the most. And everything kind of fell into place in a really positive way going into this fiscal year. And we had a really good rhythm and we had really good plans. And we had some great structures that I developed over the years and have been kind of creating the space that I've been leading. In fact, like we were there and when we developed our business plan for the year, and the team and I really showed up big and we showed up really well, and the feedback we got was exceptional. And I was really proud of that moment. I'm still really proud of that moment, right? But as we both know, you're only as good as you plan for your worst day. Like, and that's really what it comes down
That's
to. And it's easy to like, really have a good rhythm and be in emotion when things are going well, but when things start to fall apart, that's really going to teach you who you are, right? And what you can actually do. So as we went into the second half of our fiscal year in January, obviously we knew some of the changes and challenges that were happening in the nonprofit space, given the change in the federal administration. Reality is that we started kind of sniffing things out in October, November when the elections happened. People already started kind of locking down, batting down the hatches. But really, the hammer came down really quickly and really fast as soon as the new administration came on board in January. We started seeing cuts and just, a bloodbath of funding deallocations almost overnight, to the point that a quarter of my territory essentially within a couple of weeks span told me like, hey, we might not even be an ongoing concern by the end of the year. We have no idea what is going to happen. They have completely cut off like our funding. The pipes have been shut off, and it's just mass chaos. And so our great plan that we had in place to look like the all stars that we wanted to be for the year kind of just disappeared overnight. Reality is we lost millions in guaranteed and committed opportunities that we had set up through no fault of our customers, through no fault of our own. We have very healthy pipeline and structures in place to mitigate some of these things, but the apocalyptic level things that happen were so unforeseen that nobody could really mitigate for them. So at that point, it really became a matter of pivoting, right? What are we going to do? Not only from a expectation side for us, right? Because we still have expectations for metrics, for revenue expectations, things like that that we need to meet. But really, at this point, it went way beyond that. That almost became secondary to the human capacity that we saw and the human impact that we saw was happening with our customers. For me, I moved into this space because it's something I wanted to do from a personal level, right? Uh, I wanted to wake up, do something that not only fulfilled me, but that I felt was more than just checking a box for a P&L, right? And that's really what the nonprofit space at Microsoft provides, that you feel like you're part of a mission and part of something a little bit bigger than yourself. That even though, listen, we're still sales, we're still looking at what we can be in terms of expectations, but we know that it's towards a greater mission than just the stock price of a company that we work with, right? So that gives you a feeling of almost personal responsibility towards the customers that you are interacting with. So watching these insane drops in usage and crazy reduction in workforces for all of these people that we worked with for years and they don't have a job anymore, right? And I'm talking about not just people on the ground, people at all levels, like C-suites we work with, management, IT technologists, actual volunteers, like everything just being cut back. It was stark and it was heartbreaking to see these organizations that provide such valuable and important work to the world essentially be gutted and told that, nope, your work doesn't matter anymore. That's a hard pill to swallow for them, but for us as well, because we've the ones that have been helping them get to that point and have that recognition. So that when it goes away overnight, it's heartbreaking. It's very heartbreaking. Um, and I mean, we've talked about it, but the level of stress that creates, both internally and externally, is really, really stark. Like, and it makes you realize that what you do is a part of a bigger wheel, and it affects a lot more things than you're aware of, right? In a way that affects the world in a way that you're not necessarily aware of as you're doing your 9 to 5 every day. So it became very tough. It became a very tough scenario to be in, where I was trying to be empathetic to what was going on, while also trying to essentially hold it together for my team, my territory, and the role that I have within the tech social impact space. Um, and like I said, it's a it's easy to be on point when everything's going great. It's
Right.
much harder to be on a point where everything is not going good at all. And that's really what this, kind of half of our business here taught me. This, if I can take this on and come out the other side, okay, nothing else is really going to phase me, right? We can lean in the worst times, and our customers are going to appreciate us so much more for that than any time when things are good. And that is something we've been told many times from many different organizations that we work with. Um, it's stark when you hear somebody tell you like, "Hey, you're the only partner we have that's still talking to us."
Wow.
Like, um, or organizations that we didn't have a very good partnership connection with, telling us like, "I need you to talk to my CFO, my CIO right away," because they need to understand what is going to happen between Microsoft and our organization going forward. And that in itself is, an opportunity to create such a better relationship that was ever there before,
Right.
because I think as humans, we all realize that during the bad times we're going to come together. And at the end of the day, that's who you're dealing with, right? Another human being. They want to understand that you're a person on the other end of the line, understanding their plight, and that you're going to try to help as much as you can. And that's literally all we've been doing this past 6 months. The the dollar amounts really became secondary to
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
that had to do with helping the people at these organizations continue being able to operate in the world in a way that this still felt valuable and engaged for them, right? And I think we're only going to come out for the better for it at the end of the day. We really showed up. We showed up big with empathy, both also with answers in a lot of ways that they didn't even know we had answers for, right? And it's never been perfect. Some of it we're making up as we go along. But I think that even the fact that we're showing up for them has meant so much that we're going to come out so much better on the other end for it.
I love it. And for context for our listeners, I think about the fact that first off, we touch in one way, shape, or form the top hundreds of the largest nonprofits in North America, and we've got global counterparts as well that support broader nonprofit scope. But I think what's amazing, you talked about some really big ticket stuff, Jorge, and the relationships that are not only burgeoning over time, some of the work that you've done over the last several years working with these folks, but to see it come to an uncertain, screeching halt. The only other thing that I can think of that even comes close to comparison is in the beginning of the pandemic when I was working with a lot of healthcare organizations, and they were overloaded and overwhelmed right out of the gate, and the relationship shifts. I've got a saying that I like that it's really all about, if you can sit with your customer in the pain and in the storm, you can walk with them in the sun. And what that means, it's very much aligned with what you just said. Um, the numbers, the metrics, all those things go out the door. And I think it behooves us to mention the fact that first off, Jorge's team is going to hit their number this year. But if you take the focus off the number and you focus on the people and the relationships and the execution, doing the right thing, those are the types of things that ultimately lead to the result. The other thing you mentioned that I wanted to make sure I really double down on is the mission makes the margin. I've always loved that line of yours, and I've even heard it from directly from the mouths of executives within our nonprofit customers that the more money, the more mission. And so, we consciously spend a lot of time really investing in these organizations to help them see where we could help them unlock more opportunity. Where are we a differentiator? It's not lost on me, you, or anyone that our customers have a lot of choices. They can buy cloud anywhere, but they can't get this level of relationship and this caliber of investment from people, real people, like they can with our team. You brought up some interesting points around kind of what happens when, the world changes, right? And I know you and I had some conversations almost on a daily basis back in January, February of just some of the drastic changes, some of the conversations that were being had. You and I were jumping on with executives. And there's a lot of relationships that you have to massage during that time. I mean, you have to be available and, ready to have that tough conversation. But we also had to communicate, up the chain. We had to make sure our leadership had no surprises. Describe to us, what goes on in those moments? Like give us a little bit more detail of, how you jump in, manage those tough conversations, but also keeping your team in the game. Because I know a lot of people, this was their first time they had really seen drastic, like cataclysmic change, but you kept it together. You kept a steady hand on the wheel. How do you do that?
I mean, part of it is definitely some maturity in where I am as a person, but also in my career. The acceleration that I've been able to achieve at Microsoft has taught me a lot about not only resiliency, but like really giving in everything you got, no matter what the circumstances. You and I have talked about before, like I think guys like us have a like chip on our shoulder, but not in a bad way, right? It's where like we've gone through some stuff where we know that we never want to go back to that place. So we always have to keep moving forward. But sometimes forward isn't a direct line. Sometimes forward is a set of stairs where you take it one step at a time. And that's really what I had to recontextualize to what was going on here, where a lot of the momentum, what I've been doing had just been pedal to the metal, full speed ahead, right? And this really brought us to a speed bump, and that speed bump became a set of stairs that we just needed to traverse to get to the other side of it. So it's really about recontextualizing what our understanding of not only a successful year was going to be, but what our impact was going to be, right? That's why I really, I truly live by that mission makes the margin. It's like understand what your customers are doing. And that'll get you to where you want to be with them, right? In terms of a relationship. But it's hard. It's hard when you're looking at the most drastic drops in usage count and revenue and really the landscape of all the forward momentum you had been building over the year just hit a block and start going backwards. Um, so really understanding that humans were behind this, both from what was happening, and who was being affected, I think that was the most important thing. Really bringing it down to a human level of understanding that these are real people that are being affected. So interact with them in a way that is as genuine and as empathetic as possible, right? I want to go back to something I mentioned that I'm here for a reason. That has to do more than just like, hey, I want to feel good about what I do for work. For me, it's a personal thing, very much so. Um, my family is from Guatemala. They're immigrants. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Guatemala. I've been here since I'm a year and a half old. I understand the struggles of going through adverse effects that are not brought about by yourself, right? I've had to live through some really tough times where I've had to engage in things that I didn't ask for, I didn't need to be involved in, but I had to be. That in itself has created a level of resiliency in myself that I think a few other people have. And it's also given me a chance to be very genuine in what my intentions are with people. You know, I've taken that mentality to what I do every day because I see the impact of what these organizations do. And in some ways, they're very impactful to things that are very personal to me. So understanding that level of interaction with your customer and what they do and how they do it, not only from a black and white numbers perspective, but really like how does that impact people like myself? How does it impact people like my family? How does it impact like friends and other people that I know? That gives me a level of understanding on how I can engage with them that I think is not only genuine but unique to what I bring. So when this all started to happen, that's what I reverted back to. It's like, let me take all of these lessons that I've learned from a personal perspective throughout my life and let me bring those to the table in my professional life. Because it's the quickest and easiest way that I can understand the context of what's going happening and how we can help get through it. Right. So really it's a personal thing. It's a very personal thing for me. I'm like not only the resiliency factor, but looking at what I can do to help people be better. And that's not only our org, it's also my team, right? Because
Yeah.
you and I have talked about it so many times that so much of being the lead in a sales capacity is about making sure that your people are okay, right? You can't do it all on your own. I wouldn't want to. I'd work 150 hours a week if I had to. I got to make sure my people are okay. And when I start seeing them losing quite literally sleep and time, and let's be honest, the pocketbook's starting to be hurt. Like I take that very personal because I've been there. I've done those roles. I know how it can be affected by not having a lead that is as engaged with you as you need them to be. So really that extended to them as well, where I'm like, how can I help my team be okay with the things that are going on and in turn be mentally okay to bring their best to our customers, right? So it's a fine balancing act, but I really like it really just comes down to the lessons I've learned both personally and professionally throughout my life where I mean you said it yourself so many times in our calls, it's like it's really the Rocky mentality, right? It's like it's not about getting hit, it's about how you get up after you get hit and you know how quick you can do it. So that's really the mindset shift that I have to take on to be able to get through what's going on as best as possible, not only for myself and our customers, but really for my team and the people I work with. Because I said expectations don't go away overnight, right? It's about recontextualizing what those expectations are and how you can make sure that everyone is getting their dues as best as possible.
I mean, these experiences, they are crucibles, personally and professionally, and we come to them with our own experience and perspective. And that's what I love about what you said, Jorge. It's like by default, you're going to come to every situation with the sum of your parts. And that has helped you lead even through the ambiguity and the uncertainty, whereas somebody else that you might be interacting with may not have that same level of experience. And that's why it's all the more important that you're able to be confident and comfortable leading during those situations. And
Yeah.
frankly, it helps a tremendous deal as well as you're working with executives. I have personally seen you in the room with customer board members and C levels, and your level of acumen, in dealing with human to human interaction with any executive at any organization, I think helps you a great deal in forging these relationships that are built on trust and transparency. And it's all the more valuable in situations like this. I'm curious, are there any creative or maybe unexpected ways that you and your team helped customer organizations during this time? I mean, obviously, things are shifting, things are looking very different. I think that need to pivot and adapt and adjust in times like this is all the more, it's just as critical. How did you lead through those types of scenarios?
I mean, a lot of it we're still making up, like as we go
Yeah.
along, things are still shifting every day. But I mean, we had to get creative just on the engagement capacities alone, right? We had to really reach out deep into some of the organizations and places that we hadn't opened those doors before, just to get an understanding of where they were uh, as an operation, right? And be able to get an understanding of the landscape of where they were. So a lot of it just came from us. And, you know, I wouldn't say beg, borrow, and steal, but definitely pounding a lot of doors to be like, hey, we know this is happening to you. We can help, right? So proactivity is a huge piece. It's always been a huge piece of our engagement. It's always been a big piece of how I lead this territory. But now more than ever is super important because the world felt very reactive. People were coming to us and throwing everything. It's like asking for help. And that just bogs it down a lot of times, right? When you're just like, I'm just trying to cover up this hole, patch up this crack, things like that. Where we really have to pivot quickly, get an understanding of the lay of the land, how bad things have gone, and then become super proactive on it, even more so than we had been before, and really start to look at creative ways that we can incentivize customers to optimize, to do more with less, to be able to take chances on things that we've been talking about for a long time and now have become more critical than ever, right? Especially during a time of uncertainty for them, where we knew that this would be able to help, but how are they going to justify it internally when we're asking them to invest more, right? So it really became a matter of over expanding our engagement to show the results of the investment we were asking from them, right? Not only from time, but dollars, right, as well. And we got very hands-on with as many assessments as we could. We've always had these great tools at our disposal, and I'll be the first one to tell you that it felt like we were reactive with them. We're like, if someone brought it up, great, that's what we get. We want the opposite. We're like, throw every assessment, every workshop, every possible engagement that we can have to show value to a customer right now at every single customer. Let them pick up on whatever they want, and we'll run with it. And we became overly engaged with our partner network. That's really what has gotten us across the line. Again, another thing that I'm really proud of this territory is we've been very good at that partner piece. For those of you who don't know that are listening, Microsoft is very focused on working with our implementation partners. We always have been. It's a huge key component of our ecosystem. Now more than ever, they've been super impactful in what we've been able to do. And we've always been good at it, but we realized how quickly we needed to step it up. And that was a big moment of realization where not only were we throwing the kitchen sink at them, but we're like, okay, we got somebody lined up ready to go to help you with it. And that became just a complete new tool, not even a new tool, an upgraded tool that we were able to really capitalize on in a really quick manner, to show a lot of value in a very short amount of time to a lot of customers. So that's something that it was more of an expansion, but really the creativity came from how quickly can we do it and how broadly can we do it, right? We stopped being so reactive on it and just started being way more proactive across the board. I don't particularly like to be the throw the spaghetti at the wall, see what sticks kind of guy, but in this moment we had to, right? We had to bring everything we could, and we did a lot of good things in a very short amount of time looking at that. The other thing was really we were getting some weird asks, let's be honest, like
Yeah.
just things we've never been asked before and how we can help customers mitigate costs, look at doing more with less. And that is something that is not a traditional part of our daily engagement with customers, but we quickly have to pivot to being something that we brought to everybody. Really, things as simple as contract reviews, looking at how they could consolidate license structures. What were they using third party that they could, do cheaper and more effective with us? And it really became a matter of we understand that you're probably gonna lose a lot of headcount, but what can you do to help the people that are left do more than what you think is possible? And that's really where a lot of our engagement pivoted to of this is where the new world is for you, but we know that there's a space that this new world can be as impactful for you as it has been doing it differently in the past, right? It might not be at that scale, but you're still going to get that kind of impact. So it very much became not so much a creative revamping of how we do things, but an accelerated kind of hyper focus on everything we have can be good for everyone. So let's give them the option to do everything and then let them choose where they want to focus on what's going to be the most impactful thing for them at that time. And that's what we'll run with. So another reason that I was so hyper focused on like how's my team doing is because like I knew that this is something that was gonna have to happen. So I needed them to be on not only be on board with it, but have the mental awareness that like this is gonna switch on a dime. I need you to go do this right now. So that's really where that kind of readdressing came from. I don't even want to call it like a reassessment. It's just a readdressing of how we were doing things with our customers.
I love that. I mean, look, the definition of value to the customers we serve shifts in time like this. And there's a couple things that you touched on that I really want to double down on. And one being, you shifted your approach, but it wouldn't have worked if you hadn't had the buy-in and the trust of your customers and also your team. So I love the fact that, hey, number one, you're showing up and you're trying to figure out, okay, your needs look different. I mean, there's a short-term path that we've got to take here, and we were getting very, unique asks on a daily basis. But to your and your team's credit, we were exploring every avenue by which we might be able to bring relief or assistance or aid to help in the short term, while also kind of building a foundation for wherever they go next. I mean, you and I both know that some of these organizations look very different than they did at the beginning of this calendar year. But they are still fully invested in working with you and the team on strategy going forward. Some of these steps, I mean, these investments that building that trust, these things started years ago. And that's why I think it's important to point out to folks that this stuff doesn't happen overnight. These
Yep.
relationships that Jorge and his team have formed and forged with customers and with each other have been months and years, in some cases, in the making. And that's why you can't control everything. You can't control the chaotic things that sometimes transpire in the climate that we're working in. But what you can control is how you show up, how you communicate, how you work with each other, how you look out for each other. Those are the kind of things that I think are so critical in what you've outlined today, Jorge. I want to ask, like, you talked earlier about the balance, right? How do you balance empathy and decisiveness when your team and your customers are looking to you for direction amidst chaos?
It's not easy. Like, it's something that, like, going back to what I previously mentioned, I think the personal experiences that I bring to my work really, help me have a good baseline. And I think it's something everybody can do, right? Like, not everybody experience is going to be the same, but everyone can pick up on a moment or a few key moments in your life that really can give you context for how to engage in moments like this with other people. So I think that's where everyone should look at a baseline. It's like, what are the key things of my personal life that have affected who I am that I can essentially use to bring my best self to my professional work, right? So I would say that's always what's going to keep you grounded, right? Is remembering who you are. Um, to give the listeners a little bit of context, we have a weekly meeting with Carson. There's always a DJ of the week that comes up at the beginning. Um, I think I was chosen like 2 or 3 times at this point. My last time I chose a song by NXS called Never Change. They're one of my favorite bands. Love them. And I chose it because we were going through the thick of it at the time. And that's where I was mentally. It's like, that song's not about not growing and not evolving who you are, but it's about never changing who you are as a person. It's about staying true to yourself. And it's about understanding that you're going to evolve and you're going to change. But if you change the core of who you are, the evolution means nothing, right? So that's really what my mentality came down to of I know who I am. I'm going to bring that to what I'm doing. And then I'm going to figure out the details of that as I go along, because that's all I could do. So that's really where I think people should start from remember who you are, remember what you do, remember why you do it, right? And I think that that's going to make your path towards the challenge that you have to face way easier overall. That being said, when you're in the middle of chaos, sometimes it is very hard to remember that. Um, I've lost a lot of sleep. I felt very, very, very burnt out these last few months at various stages and in various capacities, right? There are some days that are amazing. You get like a jolt of energy and you power through the rest of the day. There's some days you wake up and from the outset you're just like, no, I don't got it today. And you got to find a way to get through it. And finding a way to kind of like balance that out is something that's gonna be different for everybody. But I think as long as you stay true to who you are and what you do, and remember why you do it, you're gonna find a way overall. Um, and honestly, just a lot of it is I'm in a place where I'm like really good with my life overall. So understanding that like this is something that's happening, but lean back on the things that are there for you at the end of the day, right? Your family, your spouse, your kids if you got them, your pets if you got them. Like the things that no matter what's happening in the world, they're there. They're not going to go away, right? And realizing that they can be a source of energy and a source of fuel for you to remember like, hey, I'm doing this for more than just myself. I'm doing it for things outside of my work that are meaningful to me, and that I want to make sure are okay, by what I do every day. So I think it's just that, just being genuine, being remembering who you are and remembering that there are things that are greater than the news cycle sometimes,
Yeah.
to keep you grounded. Like it's really about that. Like if you keep yourself grounded and you look at the greater sum of things, it's going to give you the ability to not only lead with empathy, but shift and reprioritize what you need to do, but also recontextualize how you can do it overall.
Well said. I mean, look, there's always going to be ups and downs. And I would say, if anything, your reputation, the things that you can control, those things only improved and increased and skyrocketed during this ambiguous time because of the way you handled yourself with grace, with empathy. Um, and what I love too, Jorge, is that you're willing to admit like the feelings that I think many of us go through. Like every day isn't sunshine and rainbows. There are days where, believe it or not, we're not in the mood to face all the bad news and to take the hits and take the lumps. But we do it together. And we're frankly forthcoming about some of the stuff. Like you and I have had multiple conversations over the last several months of like, my God, today was just awful. And like, what's the plan? And, what do you need? And get that space that you need to get away from this place. Take a walk, spend some time with the spouse, whatever it is. And I think that's the key element is you can't take every bit of how the work sometimes makes you feel out that door.
Yeah.
You've got to make sure that when you walk out that door, you're going out there eyes wide open to invest in the people and the places and the things that matter that are going to sustain you when this space isn't working. Sometimes this space is working really, really well. And the other stuff doesn't have to be at a 10, right? But that is not always the case because it isn't a work-life balance. It's like a work-life rhythm. And so
Yeah.
sometimes things are really going to be working and sometimes they're not. As we kind of wrap, like I'd love to hear too, like you've articulated a lot of things, Jorge, that you've experienced not only in your life and career, but even just experiences and learnings that you've accumulated over the last several months. What are the things that you think you take forward? How are you going to maybe lead even differently or better in the future based on what you've learned?
I think the biggest takeaway is remembering that we're all people. Like, and that's a weird thing to say, right? Because like it is. You see someone's face and it's like, it's a person. I mean that more on like a human impact level.
Yeah.
Like I've always heard the phrase of, you lead by example. But for me, it's really like I'm never gonna ask someone I work with or that I collaborate with to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. If I'm asking you to get down in the mud, elbow deep, guess what? It's because I'm already elbow deep in that mud with you.
I love it.
That's number one, right? It's don't take the people that you work with for granted, but do what you're asking to them as much as you're asking them to do it.
Yes.
So I think that's been the biggest takeaway because I've asked a lot of my team. We've had a lot of asks that have been made of us. I've asked a lot of them. They've asked a lot of me, right? And the keyword there is like there's a lot of asks, but everybody has said yes. From our customers to my team, to myself, yourself, to you, to our leadership, the word has been yes. Because everyone finds that we're collaborating, we're working together for a greater goal, right? So I think that's a huge key component of leadership that I've learned in these past 6 months is that like lead with empathy, but lead with direct engagement, right?
Yeah.
Don't be passive. Like passive leadership is not something that's ever going to win you any awards. It's not going to give you any accolades from the people you work with. They're going to forget about you real quick because you're not leading them. You're basically just managing them. And that's a huge difference. Anyone can be a manager and have a title, right? It's very different to be a leader. You need to be decisive, you need to be direct, but you also need to be empathetic and be in the lines with them overall. So that's the absolute biggest takeaway that I've learned from these past few months is I've been asked to do a lot and I've asked my team to do a lot, but I've been there with them along the lines every single step of the way because I'm not going to put the burden on them at all over it, right? And secondly is again to that human capacity is give people time to breathe. Like that's another huge thing. I think you and I have talked about it before is remember that everybody has their own personal stuff going on and they need some time away and they need time to breathe and take a breather. And the best thing to that is like, I got you. Like, like I you need a day, tell me what you need for me to take the day. We've talked about that. You've told me that same thing. You're more than willing to pick up the baton when I need you to, and I will do the exact same thing for my team. Um, that context alone allows us to operate in a way that makes us effective more than anything else. Forget the metrics, forget spreadsheets, forget diving down in data. If we don't have that kind of connection to realizing that we all win together and that sometimes I'm going to ask you to do a lot, but then I absolutely understand when you ask me to do the same in return. 100%. That's a great working relationship. And I think those are the biggest lessons I've learned from what's been going on. Because we literally got down in the trenches, like all
Yeah.
together, and we dug ourselves out.
Yeah. I mean, literally day to day, gritty conversations, getting bad news, reacting and responding, almost like trying to draw that line in the sand and, figure out what's the strategy. And it's great to be able to get a little bit of space from some of those so that you can look back and have some of those learnings. But what I think is amazing too is, you'll be all the better leader for it going into new experiences because you'll be able to help your team see around corners even better as a result. What I love too is that you really highlighted the human element. And at the end of the day, it's how can or have we elevated the people around us? Because without elevating the people around you or giving them positive side of the experience or, helping them on the journey, what's the point? Why do we exist? Why are we leading teams if, we're not up leveling the people that we serve and support. Those types of things are so important. Anything else that you wanted to make sure we hit on today, or any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, it's funny. We didn't even touch on like the number. I think you mentioned it, but like, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like my team and I, we're going to make our number. We're still going to have a really good,
That's the
successful
happy
year,
ending.
right? That's the happy ending to it all. Like we showed up exceptionally well. I'm incredibly proud of the work we've done this year, given the circumstances and the challenges that were thrown, upon us. So if anything, this has been probably in a weird way, the best year I've ever had at Microsoft. Like last year, I had a great personal year, like just above and beyond what I expected it to. But this has been the best year because it's taught me the most about what we can do, who I am as both like an individual contributor, but really a leader, and what I know that we can do as a team all up. And really the biggest thing is the relationships that we built with our customers, where, they know that they can absolutely come to me as the guy who can get stuff done for them. Like, I think that's, like, I put that on a business card. That's what I literally would have on my business card. Jorge Franco, the guy who gets stuff done. And that hasn't been overnight. That's been a long time coming. It's been a lot of buildup, but I've also haven't done it alone, right? That's why I think it's so important to like not only validate but acknowledge that this is really a multiple part engagement between our customers, my team, myself, and everybody else who's involved, our leadership team, everybody, because everybody has a piece and a stake in what's happening to different degrees, but everybody does. And as if one person finds success, everybody kind of finds success altogether. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned this year. And I think, my if anything, my closing statement is that it's like success comes when we all do it together, and it's not necessarily always black and white. Sometimes it's gray, but as human beings, we can, look at the nuance of what that success is.
Beautifully said. No better place to end. Jorge, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you every single day and to learn from you, seeing you in action, but also sharing your story today. I know it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you, Carson. I appreciate the time.
Anytime.